Soaring high above the clouds, a solitary hero keeps a watchful eye over America.
Donald Trump will destroy our democracy.
Trump has dismantled all of American soft power.
He is destroying the strength of America.
An imposing villain has come to dominate the political landscape.
He is single-handedly wrecking the world economy.
Nobody has done more for Israel than Donald Trump.
Everything Trump touches dies.
I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade.
From sea to shining sea, desperate voices cry out, "Save us, great man!"
He is now a full-on threat to the American establishment.
You, Donald Trump, have taken the handcuffs off of DEA agents.
He is the singular guiding hand about what will be occurring from this point forward.
Looks like we've got a problem on our hands.
He's the Grim Reaper, that guy who always shows up as the arbiter of death, except for now it's just Trump.
It's now President Donald Trump's economy.
Using his superhuman ability to detect greatness, Great Man locks in on the history-making wavelengths of Donald Trump.
MAGA-ism, or MAGA, whatever you want to call it, politics, is non-transferable. It belongs to one man. It belongs to Donald Trump.
Trump is a threat to this nation.
This looks like a job for Great Man.
Great Man swoops down to address the nation.
Citizens, I am Great Man. I have come to you with an important warning about Donald Trump. Using the tremendous powers of his subjective will, Trump has single-handedly conquered America all by himself as an individual.
What can we do, Great Man?
Why, there's nothing you can do. You're just a common citizen. You are powerless against the forces of greatness.
Oh no!
But don't worry. Next year, we will have a midterm election. Then, if we're lucky, great men of the Democrat Party will emerge, and maybe they will put a stop to Donald Trump's nefarious greatness.
Well, what do we do until then?
I mean, there's not much you can do. You're not great.
But, Great Man, aren't you great?
Me? Well, not really. I mean, I'm not a politician. I just have the great ability to detect greatness.
Oh, well, what is greatness anyway?
I can't really explain it. I can just kind of point it out.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, we get it.
Well, looks like my work here is done. Now, if you'll excuse me, Norway is having elections soon, and I need to go figure out if anyone great is running for office there.
Thank you, Great Man. I guess. Be sure to tune in for next week's episode of Great Man, Lord of the Fjords, or Subjectivism in Scandinavia.
This is Thomas Carlyle. There's a good chance you've never heard of Thomas Carlyle, but his ideas may have shaped and embodied the Victorian mindset more than anyone else's. His pronouncements on history commanded the attention of all of Europe. His contemporaries described him as a modern-day sage. Thomas Carlyle might be relatively obscure today, but his ideas remain profoundly influential in the undercurrents of the Western worldview. Carlyle and his ideas fundamentally changed the world. Or did they? Would the world today be any different if Thomas Carlyle had never been born? Can a single person change the course of human history? Or is the importance of these giants of history overstated? Hi, I'm EJ. Welcome back to NonCompete. Today's topic, the forces of history. What drives humanity forward? And can you, yes, you watching this right now, have any hope of changing the world? Or are little people like us mere NPCs, hopelessly at the mercy of greater men? Let's begin by taking a closer look at Thomas Carlyle and his ideas. He formulated the great man theory of history in his influential work On Heroes and Hero Worship and the Heroic in History. Not exactly a clickbait title. According to great man theory, history is driven forward by important individuals who control destiny through sheer force of will. These are the great men of history. Charlemagne, Napoleon Bonaparte, Adolf Hitler, Genghis Khan. Men, and in the eyes of Carlyle, such figures were pretty much always men, who had a supernatural talent for shaping history. As Carlyle put it,
universal history, the history of what man has accomplished in this world, is at the bottom the history of the great men who have worked here.
Before we even unpack this idea, let's apply Carlyle's own logic to Carlyle himself. Was he indeed a great man who single-handedly conjured his ideas out of thin air, a genius unmoored from the lowly masses of commoners, or was he rather a product of the prevailing conditions and attitudes of his time? These are important questions because they get to the very heart of politics. If we want to change the world, we have to first understand how the world gets changed. Do we, common people, the working class, the masses, have agency? Or are we simply passive observers reliant on great heroes to fight on our behalf? Thomas Carlyle came of age in Scotland during a period of immense social upheaval. Capitalism was supplanting the old world of feudalism. The Industrial Revolution was reshaping society, the world of kings and queens and noble lords was collapsing, and mighty robber barons were rapidly taking command of Western society. Carlyle was deeply concerned with these rapid and drastic changes in human society. He was deeply caught up in German romanticism and idealist philosophy. He saw the waning feudal era as a time of honor and nobility, and he saw the newly coming capitalist world as troubled and alienating and lacking a moral foundation. According to Carlyle, the ethos of the old world had tragically come to an end, while the new world was still waiting for spiritual rebirth. I want to point out right now that Carlyle looked down on the common masses, the working class. He admonished the poor as morally weak, and he described poverty-stricken Irish people as vagrant lackals and good-for-nothings, foolish most of you, criminal many of you, miserable all. The sight of you fills me with astonishment and despair. I'm very sorry to any Scottish viewers. And trust me when I say I'm not cherry-picking here. He had much worse to say about Black people and Jewish people and pretty much anyone who wasn't wealthy and white. But if you were rich, then Carlyle thought you were awesome. Carlyle glazed capitalists as captains of industry. He actually coined that term in his 1843 book, Past and Present. He believed that the emerging ruling class of industrial capitalists constituted a new era of what he called aristocracy of talent, and that this new aristocracy would bring a new moral foundation to society. Wealthy capitalists, according to Carlyle, were the new nobility, and they would revitalize human society, which had fallen into depravity after the end of feudalism. Carlyle instructed capitalists to command the working class with a heavy hand. He called on industrial colonels, workmasters, taskmasters, life commanders, equitable as Rhadamanthus, a wise king of Greek legend, and inflexible as he, to rule over workers with an iron fist. Carlyle seems to think that this was the only way for the lives of poor workers to have any value whatsoever. Workers needed to be harshly and strictly controlled to keep them from becoming lazy and degenerate. Carlyle speaks for the capitalist class in commanding the masses of workers. Here is work for you. Strike into it with manlike, soldier-like obedience and heartiness, according to the methods I here dictate. Wages follow for you without difficulty. Refuse, shirk the heavy labor, disobey the rules. I will admonish and endeavor to incite you. If in vain, I will flog you. If still in vain, I will at last shoot you. For Carlyle, wealthy capitalists gave hope to the soulless new era of capitalism. Capitalists would be the new model for morality rooted in an ethos of meritocracy. Capitalist society was bereft of moral value, according to Carlyle, but capitalists were the antidote to that social nihilism. According to Carlyle, this would be a better state of affairs than feudalism, since capitalists earned their nobility and their power. In 1850, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels critiqued Carlyle's views of class society as incoherent, pointing out that Carlyle's new era is distinguished from the old era principally by the fact that the whip imagines it possesses genius. Marx and Engels also pointed out Carlyle's hypocrisy in a review of his book Latter-day Pamphlets. Carlyle hammers out a litany of complaints about how capitalism causes selfishness, how capitalism leads to too much competition, how capitalism has caused alienation, how noble virtues have been replaced by the hollow laws of supply and demand, how capitalism leads people to worship money and abandon nobility, only to then turn around and lavish praise on capitalists, the very people who built this capitalist hell world which he has so harshly rebuked. I mean, Carlyle is basically like, hey, you know what I really hate? I hate capitalism. But you know who I love? I love capitalists. Carlyle was so fixated on his individualistic, hero-worshipping view of society that he believed anyone who came out on top as wealthy and powerful must possess some kind of mystical, inherent greatness, and this greatness gave them the moral authority to autocratically rule over the working class. Carlyle believed that great and powerful men were heroes, and he explicitly advocated for what he called hero worship. According to Carlyle, great men should rule and others should revere them. Great men, according to Carlyle, were kind of assholes by necessity. Great men are leaders, not saints, and they are almost always highly flawed people who struggle through life. Great men must be of necessity ruthless in order to do what must be done and to move humanity forward. And this aspect of great man theory is alive and well in the MAGA movement today. Worshippers of the cult of Trump describe their Lord and Savior as an imperfect vessel, a sinner who is doing the work of God despite his flaws.
President Trump will be the first to say that he is an imperfect vessel. I believe God has used him in a very powerful way.
And this is not a coincidence. Modern-day fascist thought leaders like mega-fascist Curtis Yarvin are directly inspired by Thomas Carlyle. Yarvin named his daughter after Carlyle. He thinks of Carlyle as a Superman who should be exalted precisely because he hated democracy. And yes, Carlyle truly hated the idea of universal democracy that gave a voice and power to the working masses. We see in Carlyle exactly what we see in fascist rhetoric of people like Curtis Yarvin, Steve Bannon. We see Carlyle's hero worship in the Führer principle of the Third Reich. We see it in fascist Italy's slogan, Mussolini is always right. Führer worship is the logical conclusion of hero worship. If one is to believe that history is nothing but a great struggle between formidable individuals, then it would stand to reason that we in our present era can only hope to see the world changed by our own contemporary great men of history, Führers.
One man, Donald Trump, he gave voice to the people's concerns.
This is why Yarvin says he wants a dictatorship. This is why we have Nazi Catholics on Jubilee saying they crave autocracy.
What do you believe in? Autocracy.
Now, I wish it were true that only fascists buy into great man theory of history, but I'm afraid that's just not true. Great man theory is practically ubiquitous in all corners of society, and if you don't believe me, just think about baby Hitler. See, as soon as I say baby Hitler, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Adolf Hitler is so reviled by those of us who oppose fascism that his infancy is the subject of a thought experiment about time-traveling assassins. Trying really hard not to get demonetized here. Most of us intrinsically buy into the idea that Hitler was uniquely evil, that Hitler bears sole responsibility for the horrors of the Holocaust and World War II. And this is in itself a form of hero worship.
I understand very well why it is wrong to compare Adolf Hitler's Third Reich to any other movement. It was uniquely evil, full stop. I get it.
If you believe that Adolf Hitler possessed some kind of mystical power over history, you are subscribing to great man theory. You are hero worshiping Adolf Hitler. And in the same way, if you think that Donald Trump is in and of himself the monumental villain of our present circumstances, that he has some kind of mystical power as an individual over our destiny, you are worshiping Trump as a great man of history, whether you realize it or not. Great man theory is a philosophical error, and it's had very real ramifications in our society. In Marxist terms, it's a form of false consciousness, a profound misconception about reality that makes it difficult, if not impossible, for us to struggle for political change. And now, to explain the philosophical concepts which underlie these quandaries, here's me dressed up like a stuffy professor, which gives me a veneer of intellectual authority while lampshading a degree of self-awareness, which indicates that I'm in on the joke, thus maintaining enough approachability to keep you engaged. Thank you, me dressed up like an elder millennial. I'll take it from here now that you've spent enough time talking like a relatively normal person so that the viewer doesn't feel alienated by theatrical antics such as this. Let us begin by examining the subject of subjectivity and objectivity. These words mean different things in different schools of philosophy, but the way we will be using them today, they are related to generality and specificity. Objective factors are factors which encompass subjective factors. Objective laws are laws which govern and regulate various subjects. What is a subject, you ask? Well, you are a subject for starters, and so am I. A subject is just a thing, a phenomenon, an idea, or even a human being. If something exists over time in a stable form, we call it a subject. As human beings, we have what's called subjective will. That means that we have an ability to think and act in the objective world. we can take conscious actions which impact other subjects and the world around us. But we don't have godly superpowers to do anything and everything we want. Our subjective will is restrained by objective laws, such as the laws of nature. You can't break the laws of gravity and physics, and there are many other objective laws which govern and regulate your ability to act and change the world. If we want our actions to be as effective as possible, we have to properly understand the subjective and the objective. We have to know what can and can't be done through subjective will, and we have to know what sorts of objective laws must be obeyed as we go about our lives. If you will indulge in a brief foray into theology, this question of subjectivity and objectivity brings to mind the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. One needn't be religious to comprehend the value of such wisdom. Hey, Professor, we're reading dangerous levels of smarm here. Can you tone it down just a little? Apologies, I do get carried away sometimes. At any rate, this question of subjectivity and objectivity is of great concern in historical materialism, which is a philosophy of history and human society which was first formulated by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Historical materialism attempts to formulate an understanding of the objective laws which govern human society while simultaneously understanding the role played by subjective factors such as human will. According to historical materialism, great man theory makes the mistake of overemphasizing the subjective will of certain individuals while ignoring the importance of class society and the objective laws which human society must follow. Great man theorists like Carlyle implored us to worship heroes of history and deny that the working class has any historical significance or power to change our own destiny. Now, this is hardly the only mistake that can be made when it comes to juggling the objective and the subjective. It's also quite possible to lean too far in the opposite direction by overemphasizing the objective whilst neglecting the subjective. This leads to such errors as
political nihilism, capitalist realism. These are the watchwords of the party pooper.
Capitalism is just too strong. Revolution is impossible. You might as well give up on the idea of a working class party. I poop on it. Just hold your nose and vote. It don't get much better than this.
Skulking about in the bowels of the political zeitgeist, it's the party pooper, deflating currents of revolutionary optimism wherever he goes.
Capitalism does suck, but what are you gonna do? You think you can go toe-to-toe with the billionaire class? They have all the power and we have none. That's just the way it is, so you'd better get used to the idea. Trying to do literally anything is LARPing. Nothing ever happens. Stop fighting the inevitable. Life sucks, then you die.
The party pooper!
So you see, political nihilism is the belief that struggling for change is a useless waste of effort because nothing we do makes a difference. Capitalist realism is the belief that the system of capitalism is eternal and that socialist revolution is unattainable. Both of these positions are making mistakes of overstating the objective while denying the role of the subjective will in affecting political change. To avoid overly objective errors like these, as well as overly subjective errors like great man theory, we have to develop an accurate understanding of the objective laws that govern our actions, as well as our ability to subjectively impact the world.
Subjectivity is relative. And here we see that Alice is subjective from her own perspective, while she is objective to Bob. When it comes to control of the bourgeois state under capitalism, no single individual capitalist has subjective control, but collectively, as a class, capitalists do have subjective control over the capitalist state. And when it comes to enacting social revolution, an individual worker is subjectively powerless, but as a class, the workers have great subjective power over human society. So far, we have only scraped the surface of subjectivity and objectivity, but hopefully this brief overview will help you to become more aware of basic errors in overemphasizing both the subjective and the objective in your political worldview.
And that, dear viewer, is the goal of historical materialism. We must understand the nature of class struggle. As an individual worker, you may indeed be powerless, but as a class, we as workers have tremendous power. We must understand the role which we can play as individuals in the revolution. Great figures like Karl Marx and Ho Chi Minh did not have magical superpowers, and they didn't change the world on their own through sheer force of will. They emerged from the masses, they emerged from objective conditions of society, and their accomplishments were only possible because their actions aligned with the objective laws and suited the material conditions which they lived and struggled through. As Friedrich Engels pointed out, even if Marx were never born, his ideas would still have been discovered because there was an objective need for Marxism at the time when Marx was writing. Marx was not the only person who was uncovering the truths of his philosophy. Many other figures were making similar strides, and even without Marx, those truths would have been uncovered by someone, somewhere, sooner or later. Just as Marx was not a magical superhero, neither is Donald Trump a magical supervillain. If Trump were never born, someone else would be playing the role of Trump within the MAGA movement right now. Because right now, the ruling class has an objective need for a Trump-like figure. Eventually, the ruling class will need someone else, something different, and Trump will be replaced by another person, another leader. It wasn't too long ago, after all, that Barack Obama was the figurehead of the ruling class in the USA. And not long before that, it was George W. Bush. And I'm old enough to remember how people catastrophized over GW in much the same way they gnash their teeth about Trump right now.
It belongs to one man. It belongs to Donald Trump.
Marx, Bush, Ho Chi Minh, Trump, I hate listing all those names together. They all have roles to play, however, in human history, but they don't make human history single-handedly. Trump did not create the MAGA movement. It would be more correct to say that it was the MAGA movement that created Trump. This is the history-making role of the masses at play. I think a lot of us like to deny the role of the masses in creating Trump because it's a lot more disturbing to admit that millions upon millions of people give Trump his power, that our neighbors and coworkers and family members make Donald Trump who and what he is through their tacit support. In a way, it's a lot more comforting to think of Trump as an iron-willed superhuman who is solely responsible for the rise of fascism in the USA. But in truth, Trump has power because the ruling class supports him, and the working class has not yet developed enough class consciousness to take away his power. But that can change. You, as an individual, can be a great person. We, the workers of the world, are capable of greatness, but for that to happen, we have to first achieve class consciousness. And that means that enough of us have to properly understand the world, our place in the world, and our own ability to change it. As Marx said, the philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. That's what makes this philosophy so important. This is a roadmap to eradicating false consciousness and learning the most effective and efficient way of using our subjective will to change the world in accordance with objective laws of reality. If that sounds interesting and you want to learn more, well, you are in luck because we just finished putting together this book on historical materialism. It's part 2 of a series of philosophical textbooks that we're publishing, and we are making the ebooks available for free at banyanhouse.org/shop. Real quick disclaimer, right now we're still working on laying out the ebook, but the print version is available at banyanhouse.org/shop, and as soon as the free ebook is available, we will announce it here and on our free Patreon. All right, enough plugging. Now back to the subject at hand. You get it? It's a subjective and objective factors joke. Great man theory is a great deal of garbage. Larger-than-life figures like Donald Trump are only serving a historic role. Thomas Carlyle didn't create the mindset of the Victorian era, he reflected it. Even Karl Marx was just fulfilling a historical mission, and someone else would have come up with Marxism even if he was never born. Political nihilism and capitalist realism are also philosophical dead ends. To deny the history-making role of the masses is to deny our own agency in the world. Capitalism hasn't really been around for that long, and it won't be around forever. But before it can come to an end, we as workers have to build class consciousness and enact social revolution. How long will that take? How do we do it? Well, that's up to you and me and the rest of the working class. Now, notice one thing that all of these philosophical blunders have in common. Great man theory, political nihilism, capitalist realism, they all have the same effect of neutralizing the working class and denying our role in history. And that's precisely why these philosophies are pushed so hard by capitalist culture and media. There's a reason Hollywood films always focus on superheroes and great men who are larger than life. There's a reason the stories that are sold to us are those which reinforce individualism and meritocracy. And that's because great man theory perfectly suits the agenda of the capitalist class. They need us to believe that great men shape our destiny. Otherwise, why would any poor worker accept the very existence of billionaires and the authoritarian control that they have over our society? There's also a reason that capitalist media practically never provides alternative perspectives to capitalist realism. Capitalist media and social media networks will naturally elevate the voices of political pundits and thought leaders who advise us to work within the capitalist system and to accept capitalism as an inevitable condition of humanity. Anyone who meaningfully challenges capitalist class relations is going to be ridiculed and dismissed by capitalist media as unrealistic at best and a radical extremist at worst. But what's more extreme than believing that men like Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are godlike figures whose power over humanity should not be questioned? Donald Trump didn't get where he is because he's a super smart special boy with special powers. He got where he is because he says things that a lot of Americans want to hear, and far more importantly, because he does things that benefit the ruling class. Donald Trump does have subjective impact on the world as president of the United States, but his history-making ability as an individual is secondary and vastly superseded by the determining conditions of class society. If Donald Trump were never born, then someone else would be playing the role of MAGA cult leader. Someone else would be gold-leafing the White House right now. Someone else would have been Jeffrey Epstein's best friend. Thomas Carlyle did not create the philosophical environment of rabid meritocracy and individualism and social Darwinism and great man theory of Victorian capitalism. He reflected it. His ideas were published, pushed, extolled, and lionized precisely because his words were words that were most suitable with the material conditions of the 19th century Victorian capitalist society. And Victorian capitalists promoted his ideas through their newspapers and publishing houses and lecture circuits because they, as the ruling class of society who owned all that shit, they thought that his ideas were useful for reinforcing their class agenda. It's very much the same today. Right-wing pundits like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and Steven Crowder and Joe Rogan and Tim Pool have not risen to prominence because their ideas are so profound and great and special. It's not meritocracy. They rose to the top because their ideas suit capitalists, and capitalists have money to reward people who spread ideas and defend and promote their position as the ruling class. These ideas, great man theory, political nihilism, capitalist realism, they are only ideological tools of the ruling class intended to neutralize you, to sap the revolutionary potential from the working class. So don't fall for it. It's up to all of us to learn the truth, to build class consciousness, to learn our own power as workers so that we ourselves can make history. Remember, we didn't get workplace safety protections, the 8-hour workday, and other such concessions from capitalists in the early 20th century because some great man willed it. We got those concessions because the masses rose up and forced them through. Gay marriage wasn't legalized in America because Barack Obama made it happen as a singularly heroic force of history. Gay marriage was legalized because generations of LGBTQ+ folks struggled and risked their lives and freedoms to transform the will of the masses. And the masses pressured the ruling class to make the concession of legalizing gay marriage. And right now, France and the UK and Canada aren't considering recognizing Palestine as a state because of singular visionary leadership of people like Macron. They're being forced into that position by the masses who have risen up and fought strongly in support of Palestine. The masses have an important role to play in making history, and revolution is possible. But a prerequisite for social revolution of the working class is class consciousness. We have to understand ourselves and our historic mission as workers to end class society. And that is why this particular philosophy is so important. This isn't the only book you can find this philosophy in, but I do think this is a great place to start. Historical materialism is an ideological tool for us to fight back and win against the ruling class. So check out this book. Again, the ebook is free. Be sure to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this, and maybe join us over on Patreon. We have a free tier if you want to be informed when future books, articles, and videos come out.
Well, if it isn't Great Man, the bombastic, boss-belauding bloviator, when will you recognize that subjective will is meaningless and that you are merely a plaything to the mechanical forces of history? Never! I'm here to put a stop to your nihilistic nonsense, party pooper! Recognize the history-shaping power of certain great individuals, or else... Or else what? You're powerless to stop me, just like everyone else. You're right, party pooper. I can't stop you. I'm not great, but sooner or later, a great man will put an end to your sordid slander of humanity's heroes. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. It doesn't matter either way. It's out of our hands, great man. Oh, now you've done it, party pooper. I won't stand for this. You just wait for the midterms. I'm going to vote so hard against your objective agenda. Do your worst, great man, for I shall also vote in the midterms. And then, hopefully, objective forces that are beyond our control will put an end to your silly stance of subjective solipsism and sophistry. We'll see about that, party pooper. I suppose we shall. Okay then. See you later. Bye for now. Was that okay?
Yes.
Was it funny?
Yes.
Go stop the camera, dude.